Okay, welcome everybody to our May Council meeting. In accordance with the Weddin Shire Council Code of Meeting Practice, this meeting will be recorded for the purposes of audio-visual live streaming via Council's website, and I'm guessing it is not Facebook page anymore. Those in attendance are asked to refrain from making any defamatory statements and comply with all relevant Weddin Shire Council codes, policies and procedures at all times. Item 2, acknowledgement of country. Weddin Shire Council would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. Weddin Shire Council would also like to pay respects to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. 3, acknowledgement of service. We honour our service personnel who have sacrificed their lives in the defence of our freedom, peace and prosperity. We acknowledge all of our frontline workers and volunteers who each day provide our essential and non-essential services, especially those within our Weddin Shire local government area. Attendance and applications for leave. So we've got an application from Councillor Kanar as an apology for leave of absence. We'll move in a second. Moved Councillor Frame, seconded Councillor Howell. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Also, would someone like to move that we accept our General Manager Noreen Vu via video link? Move Councillor Diprose, seconded Councillor Parlett. All those in favour?
Aye.
That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 5, confirmation of April's Ordinary Council meeting held on the 18th of April 2024 to be taken as read and confirmed. We move in seconder. Move Councillor Best, seconded Councillor Parlett. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. 6, disclosures of interest. I think we have nil.
Nil.
7, public forum. Nil. Item 8, Merrill reports and minutes. 8.1, Merrill Minute Forbes Housing Forum. We're going to move in seconder. Moved Councillor McKellar, seconded Councillor Howe. I attended, and the General Manager attended the New South Wales Incorporated Housing Forum over the 8th and 9th of April in Forbes. We travelled across each day. I would like to publicly thank the Country Mayors Association of New South Wales and Forbes Shire Council for organising this event and inviting ministers, shadow ministers, members of Parliament and speakers for the housing sector. There was unanimous support on the importance of local government from the speakers, and they have demonstrated their commitment to work with regional communities. Several topics were discussed across the 2 days. The main focus was at housing, and the attachment from the country mayors had full details there for anybody who's interested in reading that as an attachment. Item 9, motions, questions with notice. 9.1, notice of motion under levy of rates. So we're going to move in a second after that.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, we moved in second.
Oh, okay. So, all those happy to accept that recommendation?
No.
Council Mayor Bennett?
It says no report note.
Note report, sorry. Thank you. Carried. Thank you, councillors. Sorry about that. Item 9.1, notice of motion under levy of rates. We're going to move into seconder. Councillor Diprose and obviously Councillor Parlett, I guess, since it was your notice of motion.
Thank you.
Would you like to speak to that, please?
Thank you, yes. It was put in as questions with notice, and I thank our council for their responses. I just would like to speak to each of those questions and the reason I did put the questions in was because I had community members asking after I spoke last time about the under levy. So for clarity, my question was when was the under levy picked up, and I was meaning a date there. And I believe, because we have such an efficient staff, they would have picked this up as an oversight in August 2023. At that stage, possibly if the matter had been brought to council, I'm wondering if we could have rectified the problem by notifying ratepayers of the oversight and then adjusting the second and third instalments accordingly to cover the shortfall. So that's just what has come my way with community. I would also ask that, for clarity, exactly how much was the shortfall not collected, and that was addressed last meeting as 90,000 and confirmed as 94. Thank you very much. Third question, why the under levy was not immediately reported to council, given this is council's main source of discretionary income. As I said, I felt that it may have been an earlier pickup, and I do feel that my understanding of our Local Government Act is for, if we could advise the Mayor and the governing body on the developments and implementations of anything that's to do with our strategic plan, programs, strategies, policies, would, that may or could have happened, and as it was an important issue. The next question, what was the advice given to the General Manager from the Office of Local Government? And we've had that answered, which I appreciate. I just do wonder then, if there was a written advice, would that have been tabled, or could that have been tabled for us? My last question, how will this impact ratepayers with their 2024, 2025 rates? For ratepayers, clarity, and it was picked up there, and probably semantics in our I was asking for the percentage or things that it would impact on payment of rates. So for ratepayers, clarity, is it possible to report in terms for precise understanding, such as Orange Council recently reported a 4.7 increase, and they reported in terms of equating that to a dollar amount for residential rates, a dollar amount per annum for your commercial rates, and so on. So I just wondered, for Weddin rates, could we be explaining, for clarity of understanding for our 2025 rates, the increase will be 4.7 plus the under levy catch-up. So meaning our rates will be possibly, and this is not the exact figure, possibly about 6.7. So that increase will be then meaning so many dollars in residential rates, like over the year, so that's a clear understanding for community to, as a clarity thing.
Can I respond to that?
Have you finished yet?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll respond to that last one, because in terms of the 2025, I think that's a great idea. I'll go and look and see what Orange Council has done. I think that's a great idea for Weddin to do that.
Thank you.
I'll take that on notice, and come back in the next meeting with some dollar amounts
Thank you.
per ratepayer for the different rated amounts.
Yes.
That should be relatively. It's basically extrapolating that 94,000 in the way we do across the buckets. So yes, I'll commit to that for you.
That's,
Yep, sure.
appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, would General Manager like to, Councillor DeBrose?
Just a comment. Just a request, I suppose. Could we get, we've obviously got advice from OLG, which will be spot on. I think it's very important we get that in writing, and it actually refers to whatever the regulations or act, or I don't know what it'll be, where it specifically says under such and such, council is able to levy catch-up rates. So we then, and that actually then gets communicated clearly to the ratepayers. Because I think the last thing we want out of this is a class action. We haven't done this before. So if that's very, very clear to the ratepayers when they get their rates, I think that's important.
Any other questions,
Unless
Councillor?
anyone else wishes to speak, I do have a right at last response.
Anybody else? Councillor Parley?
I think that idea is very good, and I would have assumed that would be what we would be doing, was putting in our ratepayers notice something that would explain why their rates are increased, so that then anybody that hasn't listened in here, or, you know, we're communicating clearly to our ratepayers why their rates are rising the way they are. Do we need a notice of motion, or that's just an understood?
That's understood, but just to let you know that we'll have already, that's already been determined by us to include that, because I think that's only fair to have a line item, just like an Energy Australia or whatever does. If they make an error, a change, they'll notify it. So it's clear for ratepayers to read what that is.
Thank you.
So yes, that will happen.
Sorry, can I just, Councillor Howard, your language there was an overcharge or something with an adjustment to charges of rates. I think we need to clarify that it's a undercharge from last
Under
year.
levy.
Under levy that has
Okay,
been
well,
carried
that
forward.
impacts
Just
the
because your
rates.
rates in an increase, your language is in an increase, but it's actually a under levy.
Yeah, that's what our intention was,
Yeah.
or is, yeah, because that's exactly what it is. We have to describe as accurate as possible what it is.
Yeah, just in case, because we're likely to.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I can just state that was discussed at the last meeting and in the workshop that would be what the Director of Corporate Services has said in terms of that additional line item. I'm happy to follow up with Office of Local Government to get a letter to table it to Council. I would probably be mindful in terms of the language just before around whether or not it would be tabled. Of course, I would table it. And in terms of stating that it was picked up earlier, I believe that our response is the true and accurate representation. I don't believe councillors should be feeling into speculation around that.
Thank you. Councillor Best?
Councillor Parley said last reply. I'm just going to say, I don't actually think it's also local government. It's done through IPART. IPART has provision there under their rules for councils, catch-up provisions for local councils. So they set the rules for council to do it. They state they can do it over the next. You can do it back for as long as 10 years for a 10-year period.
Yes.
So it's not so much the office like government's IPART.
Well, sorry, I don't want to respond.
Yeah, I'm just saying
That's
who's responsible for that.
Yeah, but I suppose then you've got to go on, our notes here say that it came from OLG. That's, I suppose, then the question, because our written word is that it came from OLG, not IPA.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, that is correct. It did come from OLG in terms of how we do that catch-up process.
Yep.
But as Councillor Best has said, there is also information on the IPART website as well.
Thank you. Okay, so that's just for noting, I guess, that comment, was it? Or we... Notice of motion was there. Have we accepted all the answers? Everybody happy? Yep. All those in favour?
I think it was a motion.
Carried, yeah. All those in favour?
Yeah.
That's carried, thank you. Item item put 2, notice of motion upgrade of IT to Authority 7.1. Notice of motion from Michelle Cook, the upgrade of computer equipment. There's several questions there and answers. Would you like to speak on that, Councillor Cook?
Yes, please.
Accept that first.
Oh, we do, sorry. Would you like to move that, Councillor McCullough?
Yes, please.
No? We have a mover and second. Councillor Frone, Councillor Dipro seconded. Thank you.
Talk now. I suppose my question comes down to transparency, accountable and trust in the council, and best practice in trying to make councillors aware of significant expenditures, because this IT upgrade has cost us $660,000. I'll take Councillor Parlett's example. Going through the questions, the first question was, were tenders or quotations invited for this work? And the response is that there is a policy for procurement and sales of assets, and that councillors should probably be more familiar with their policies. If I pull up the policy, which I just had in my little hand, anything for 250 and greater requires a competitive process a tender process is required and a decision of council is required to award the tender. So if I am reading the policy, which I had done before asking the questions, I would think something that's $660,000 worth of expenditure is more than 250, which would require a competitive process or a tender. Now, I know the next question says that a tender was not needed. Well, maybe a tender might not have been needed, but definitely a quote or, as I said before, a discussion with council would have probably been, in my view, a good way to keep councils informed of significant purchases. I think the other question is looking at what I think the General Manager has answered, in that there is an exemption under this policy for technology, which is annual software licenses or software upgrades from existing providers. Now, in our budget, we have existing licenses for software of $223,000. Given that we've just spent $660 on this new software, I sort of again think it's not within that delegations of exemptions, because it's 3 times more than the current subscriptions that we're paying. So that was my point, was to suggest that it would be good to have councillors aware of expenditure of a significant amount of money. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll just no.
Through Mr. Mayor.
Could I like to say something first?
If
I'd just like to say something
I could
first,
just-
please. Could I?
Oh, yeah.
Just your initial language, Councillor Cook. I think you need to be very careful on how you start off your little conversations, implying that there's some sort of wrongdoing.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I don't understand how I imply
When you
wrongdoing.
bring up trust and transparency, and I forget what the other word was, it's
I said transparency, accountability.
and trust, and that's implying that there's something going on that's wrong. And it's just not language that I'd expect. Thank you. Yes, General Manager?
Through Mr. Mayor, if I could just state that I don't know where the figure of 660 comes from. I don't believe it was that expensive, and also it was several quotations. So the first is the Authority 7.2 upgrade. That did not cost council $660,000. There's also modules that come out of Authority that have also been purchased as part of this upgrade. In terms of how many times we reported the matter to council, it came up in the couple of QBRSs that we tabled last year. It came up in the operational plan when we drafted the last operational plan and put it out for public exhibition. So I find it again very disappointing for councillors to state that they weren't informed with the information when it has gone to council multiple times.
Thank you. And Councillor Best?
Yeah, I'd like to agree with the General Manager. We've been discussing this for years. You brought it to our attention that we needed it long time. We put it in last year's budget to start allocating money for it. We have been going through this thing over and over. We know that the new software's got the asset stuff that we didn't have in the previous. We know all that. We've been told it all a number of times. So this hasn't come out of the blue. We've been doing this on issues. So I totally agree with the General Manager in that comment. We know all about it. I really don't want to go through it all again. Thank you.
Any other councillors? Councillor McKellar?
I'd just like to agree with Councillor Best. We have been fully informed the whole time that this process was taking place.
Thank you.
Can I provide a reply, please?
Yes, you can, Councillor.
Could either any councillors or the GM possibly give me a resolution number for when we discuss this?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, it is a resolution that council adopted the last QPRSs in last year's budget, and then also the operational plan, because they are part of those actions in there.
Thank you. Okay. Councillors? We accept that on notice? We vote? I'm not sure what we're voting for, but anyway.
supported.
So what's the vote?
Yeah, it's-
Yep. Aye.
Carried. Thank you. We're not sure what we're voting on then. General Manager report. Item 10.1, draft legislative compliancy policy. You, General Manager,
Weddin's going to go through that.
you going through these?
Move in a second.
Moved and seconder. Moved Councillor Best, seconded Councillor Frame.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first report, item 10.1, with the draft legislative compliance policy. So this is a brand new policy for council that we're proposing to put out for public exhibition. It provides a framework in terms of providing all the different statutory and common law requirements that local government needs to operate and govern in. It was actually something in going through last year's audit process that we got asked the question whether or not we had a draft legislative compliance policy. So we've been working on it behind the scenes, and basically now it's just a proposal to put this draft policy out for 28 days.
Thank you. Any comments, councillors? All right. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Item 10.2, draft work health and safety policy. General Manager, would you like to speak on that?
Move in a second.
Oh, sorry, moved in a second. A second, Councillor Frame. Sorry, moved Councillor Frame. Second, Councillor Parlett. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the draft work health and safety policy is a replacement of our old work health and safety management system that we used to have online. So what we've decided to do is to have a strategic work health and safety policy. We updated our work health and safety management plan last year and inducted all of the staff into the WHS management system and our wellbeing day on the 13th of July. So this policy is a much more succinct policy that outlines people's general roles and responsibilities and the work health and safety practices in terms of all of the work activities, whether you're an employee, a volunteer, a contractor, or visiting a council site, or even as a councillor as well. It's been drafted by our work health and safety team, and so I'm proudly presenting this to council because I think it's been a long time coming.
Comments, councillors?
So the proposal is just for a 28-day public exhibition period.
Thank you. Councillor Best?
Just a question, is this something that our insurers have an input into, or state neutral?
Through Mr. Mayor, so our insurers have had input into our WHS management system. This policy will actually firm up some of the actions that have happened with a couple of our incident reports as well as an outcome in terms of some incident reports that have been lodged in. So yes, it's a step moving forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Cook?
I sort of would like this to be deferred because Og Health and Safety has a lot of legislation around it, and I think this is actually taking away from the current legislation, rules, requirements, everything that's out there on work health and safety, because we're not... I think the work health and safety policy should just be to follow the Act, and we seem to be cutting and pasting bits of the Act and not... I don't see the benefit in taking away things that are already in law and replacing it with a policy that is not as robust.
Okay, so would you like to move an amendment that we have a number 3 there that we defer this?
Yes.
We got a seconder for that? We haven't. That fails.
Well, yeah.
Councillor Best?
Oh no, it's just in response against the court. Just doesn't take the place of legislation. It's just this is council's a policy regarding work health and safety. You can't take away our work health and safety requirements.
But that's why I'm asking for more time on this, because I think that's actually what it's doing.
You can't.
That's why I'm asking for deferring the policy till we get that information.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I do know that's law is law.
Yeah.
The assumption is that these things are the law plus.
Yep.
Plus specific for Weddin Council.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But if that's not the language in there, then you know, that would be the only point I'd make. But that just wanted to confirm what Councillor West is saying there.
Yeah.
Okay, so all those in favour of the recommendation? Everybody?
Aye.
Yep. Thank you. Carried. Item 10.3, Draft corporate uniform address policy. We'll move in a seconder. Move Councillor Frome, second Councillor Best. Thank you. Would you like to speak
Thank
to
you, Mr. Mayor. Draft corporate uniform and dress policy is a policy we are introducing around providing our administration, so the majority of our indoor staff, formal corporate uniform. You will note that when you start as an outdoor worker, you're issued with PPE and uniform. So we are trying to make sure that the standards are across the board for our internal staff as well. And obviously when they go out and meet our customers, that they are in a council uniform that they can be proud of in terms of what they wear. And I think it will increase our look in terms of professional and corporate image as well. So this policy has been consulted with the staff consultative committee and the staff internally. Again, it's a new policy, but it's a draft that's been proposed for public exhibition.
any comments, councillors? Councillor Biprose?
Yeah, I'm voting against it, but it's mainly the compulsory bit of it. And I'll give you some background. So I worked for a corporate organisation for 25 years, and 18 years of that was that I wear a suit 5 days a week. So having been a farm kid wasn't really my favourite thing, but within that there was also a corporate uniform, and at one stage, and what came out of that was that some people loved it, some people hated it. That's just fairly unavoidable, but just making that comment. I will preface this too by saying I have no issues with the compulsory aspect of the outdoor staff, because that's around safety. I'm drawing a distinction there. Oh God. I think it's also a bit tricky for us as councillors. We don't have rules on how we present, and I don't want to have any, but for us to then sit here and say we're making a compulsory requirement for something that we haven't actually seen, and I'm not suggesting we get involved in the operational aspects of it, but flagging that. And I do acknowledge within that the ties are optional, so I have a thing about size. I think it's also important that we've been aspiring to be an employer of choice, but we're not proposing to give them choice, so that's another aspect. And also, one of our values is diversity. So for me, expression of, I don't know, metal and ink is not one of my favourite things, but if somebody wants to do that, then that's up to them. The other thing is we're not particularly flush with funds, and for me this is an optional thing that we could do. And I think one of the interesting things here is, now if I've understood this correctly, either the executive or the general manager or one of the others, this compulsory stuff doesn't apply to them. I'm not quite sure which one, you can pull me up, but things like that where you have a situation where one set of rules applies to some staff and it doesn't apply to the other. It reminded me of a thing, I can't remember what year it was pretty weird. I was working in 500 Burke Street in Melbourne. It's a 36-storey building. I was located on the 36th floor, and the CEO and all that lot were on the 35th floor, and we had a fire drill. So it's basically all hands on deck to walk down every storey of that building. And the decision was made by the executive of the bank that it didn't apply from the 35th floor up. So it's quite interesting to see that impact in that those from 34 down all had to walk out, but the ones up the top didn't. So where there's a different set of rules, it creates some issues. But I think another aspect is the compulsory aspect of things like your shirt's got to be pressed, all those sorts of things. The staff can feel like they're being watched and judged, and like they come to work and something might have happened, the washing machine's broken down or something like that. So anyway, I'm arguing against it, but mainly the compulsory aspect.
Councillor Parlow?
I think a uniform is a great idea because it does make it a lot easier for everybody getting up in the morning and going, okay, I can put this on. But I do have a little bit of concern regarding compulsory, and again the choice thing. And I just wondered, we haven't yet decided yet, and I think that needs to go back to staff for them deciding whether they want to wear a uniform and what styles. And one of my concerns is, particularly for women have different dress styles and things. Men can wear a shirt and pants and things far more easily and more comfortably than women. Women are more sensitive about their clothing styles, and I know in the past I have worn uniforms in different circumstances, and depending, it does suit some people better. It can be restrictive or too tight. Fabrics can be an issue too for people with breathability or reactions. So I just think we need to be mindful of that and maybe put it to the staff for in their circumstances for choice and their decisions about what styles and things and options that would be fine. I think it'd be lovely to have a uniform that people can wear if they want to, but if they don't, some people may just wear their ordinary black dress and put a jacket over, which signifies kind of, Weddin Shire or something. So I think having that choice, we can still have that unity thing, but I think it needs to go back to the staff for that sort of input and decision making.
I think it says there, the staff.
It does.
It does.
Policy, it does say
They
consult staff.
It does, yes, but I think very much so on what they're wearing. Do you know what I mean?
And
Well,
it's,
Sorry, through Mr. Mayor, can I just correct myself in saying that it was actually the staff that came to the Staff Consultative Committee wanting this. So it wasn't an idea from the executives to say, let's introduce a corporate uniform policy. It was the staff calling out and saying, we don't want to have to pay for our own shirts to get with our suppliers. We would like assistance with the council providing a uniform to us. So this is actually a policy that's been well consulted with staff and initiated by the staff. I'm more than happy to reconsider the words around compulsory. I'm not wedded to it, but it is just around staff do get an allocation for their uniform and they go and purchase the uniform. I guess the hook is you don't make it compulsory and they don't wear it, then is that a waste in terms of what you've given them as your budget allocation? So it's just food for thought. But to say that staff haven't been consulted is incorrect. It was initiated by the staff.
thank you. Councillor Cook.
On that point about budget, $7,000 per annum, which in my calculations, at $250 per staff member, if I'm right, John, that would be 28 staff getting $250 each allocated for a 7,000 for 20. Do we have 28 indoor staff is the first question. And the second one, I suppose, is the turnover rates of staff in keeping this up year after year. That if we have 100 staff at $250 each staff member, that's $25,000 that could be outlaid in future years. So the future years is a really concern to me. Again, I don't have a problem with the uniform, but going back to our workshop on Monday, we had some council resolutions that seemed to be taken off a resolution register, and one of them was plaques for Henry Lawson Festival invitations, or the people who led that festival. And I think that was about $500, which we said we didn't have funds for. And the other one was books for under the Dolly Parton program, where we had to pay for the postage, and we also took that out because council didn't have the funds or the grants to do that. So to be putting up a policy of $7,000 per annum minimum, I think, again, it's a great to have, but maybe not for this point in time. So we can...
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, the commencement is from the 1st of July. So there's two things around plaques. It was a point in time question. So that was in terms of a couple of months ago. This is about talking about commencing into a new financial year, and it's something that the Director of Corporate has a level of comfort in terms of having a budget allocation to. And in terms of the Dolly Parton thing, I have investigated further that it does need to be funded by the council moving forward. I express my level of disappointment that this is something that the workforce are requesting, our employees are requesting it, and it disappoints me that councillors can't see that this is an actual thing that's been initiated by our workforce.
Councillor Best.
Yeah, I'd like to put a motion to the vote. I think that the staff have actually got 28 days from this point. If they wish to put any back in, they've got the opportunity to right now and put it in. So I just want to put it in favour.
Okay. All right, we're going to put that. It's been asked to put. Everybody in favour of the recommendation?
Aye.
That's carried. Thank you, councillors.
One against, it doesn't need to be recorded.
Only one against.
I think, Mr Mayor, you didn't ask for a vote for and then a vote against, you only asked for a vote for. It's probably a point of order.
If you like.
You would need to call a point of division then,
Sure.
Councillor Cook, if that's what you're wanting.
Oh,
All right, all those for? Thank you. All those against? All right, that's our division. If you need to call for a division, you can call for division. Otherwise, I'm just going to declare it carried. Item 10.4, resolution register. Recommendation that council note the attached resolution register. I'm going to move in a second. Councillor Frame, Councillor Diprose, thank you. General Manager, would you like to speak on that?
Yes, Mr Mayor, we obviously went through the resolution register on Monday, just noting that there is one that will need to be added back on following Councillor Parlett following up with them separately, but the resolution register we did go through in terms of just giving councillors a bit more of a comprehensive update, and I think one of them will be ticked off in terms of going through that LG Hub tool that's been used by councillors as well. So that's probably my only comment on it.
Councillors, comments? Councillor Cook?
thank you. I'm just a couple of points to note. Section 335 of the Local Government Act actually says the General Manager shall implement without undue delay the resolutions of council. So the advice I've received is that it is really up to the council to make adjustments to the resolution register if they have not yet been actioned. Then if we could please get written reasons as to why they have been dropped off. And of my reading of what was there last month to what is there this month, there is 12 items dropped off. Of that, the tip is 3 of them, I believe. Oh no, sorry, the tip is 2 and the self-improvement plan is 3. And I think that they are very substantial issues for council at the moment, and that affects our financial sustainability and our delivery for the public and the community. I think the tip is a big issue, and to have it removed from this register, I think is a very big, it's a big concern to me. I don't know how others might feel, but...
Through you, Mr Mayor, we did discuss this on Monday. So the self-initiated improvement plan, the resolution was for the General Manager to table it to the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee first, and then for it to be tabled to council. So that's currently occurring. That was the actual resolution. So councillors need to be mindful in terms of it's not just about the heading of the subject that's been put to council, it's actually around the resolution. Similarly to the tips was around providing councillors an update on the information. And I would state that the Director of Environmental Services has been providing updates in terms of formal updates to council, and I know that I've been including in my weekly update to council in terms of what's going on with the tips as well. So I would say that councillors are pretty well across that information. But again, you need to read what was actually endorsed by council in the resolution section, not just the heading.
Okay, anybody else? All right, all those in favour of the recommendation?
Aye.
That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 10.5, adoption of the PP uniform policy and sun protection policy. We move in a second. Move Councillor Best, second Councillor McKellar. Thank you. Would you like to speak to the General Manager?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this policy, our PP uniform and sun protection policy, went out for public exhibition last year. I acknowledge it's been some time since we've tabled the policy back. At that point in time, we did put it out for public exhibition and engage with staff. We only got one submission from the outdoor staff, so we thought it would be better to actually do a page turn through the policy with the staff at one of our safety talks. And we've then got further comments from the staff. So what's presented now is a pretty detailed policy that's been well consulted with staff. Obviously, sun cancer in terms of needing to have that sun protection is a really important thing for council, and making sure that what we purchase and what we expect our outdoor staff to wear, or even staff that go out and do site inspections, that they're protected from the sun.
Thank you. It's pretty straightforward. Any comments? All those in favour of the recommendation?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 10, the Corporate Services Report. Sorry, item 11. There's a bit of a typo there. 11.1, Quarterly Business Review Statement. We're going to move to the seconder. Move Councillor Frame, second Councillor Diprose. Would you like to
Thank you,
kick
Mr.
off on
Mayor.
that, John?
Thank you. So I'd like to just present the third quarterly QBRS to council, and I think you've gone through a lot of it, had the time to go through a lot of it. Welcome any questions if you've still got some questions. I know we have gone through it together as a council previously. I guess the first thing I want to acknowledge is that we've got some more resources on board. Obviously, I came on board a few months ago, but now I've got a management accountant, and that is only making things easier in terms of restoring the integrity to our team to be able to provide relevant update and timely information to you as the council. So that said, the third quarter QBRS. We've got the consolidated profit and loss budget. That was the revised one in February 2024 at our extraordinary general meeting. We've got a profit and loss by fund, the general fund and sewer fund at this stage, and versus the revised budget. We've then got a profit and loss budgeted by program, which goes through all of those line items that you can see. And then we have followed by the contracts, consultants and legal budget review statement. Not many changes from the December quarter you would have seen, very, very few. And then we go through reserves. So this quarter, you will see we've been able to restore, we included the internal allocations, but that's half of it. We also need to look at the external restrictions to cash as well, so they are now in the report. I will note that they are as close as we could get to an accurate figure based on what we've got. Now this whole exercise was done by our external accountants, Luca Group, last year, which they did for us, and so. They're actually on site at the moment this week, but they are actually going through an update again for us. So we have half of it. We manage the cash receipts in and that sort of stuff, which is good. But they have had to date have been managing this tool externally, and we're in the process of transferring that back into council. So we've got the capability going forwards, and I know that myself and the management accountant will be largely, only the ones that will be responsible for it. The process at the moment with the other staff, nothing changes. They have their own inputs and contributions to it, but the bigger piece, the other bits that come into it, will be up to date by sometime next week, and then going forward we'll have a much more accurate picture. Because I notice obviously cash is something we want to monitor closely. We have been. I'm very comfortable with the position, but just so I've got it there, but I just note that it's still to be improved. So it's there for a visual appreciation at the moment, but I will have a much better position next week, and I'm comfortable with. I'm quite happy to provide that out of session to council if they want it. It's up to you, or we can go and look at it next month, at next month's council meeting. So I'll just make that as a comment. We can come back to that, and then Now, just at a very, very high level, so we've got we revised the profit and loss numbers, the income and expenditure up to around that 25 million each. That was largely a result of the natural disaster grant increases, but again, they should be very, very similar, so the net effect shouldn't impact too much. But we did end up with a very, very small deficit, which we're still, and you'll see in the QBRS for the third quarter, it's actually still showing relative, it's a much bigger, it's an improvement, it's showing it's a 3 million surplus. I don't expect that, I think that will wash through to closer to what we are expecting, but again, it comes down to the timing. So we got some RMCC funding in, and we're getting some more in, but that was not expected, and so that will shift around a little bit for us. But as it does, we report to you and update you with that position. Natural disasters, we have now in a position where we started with a position of about 32 mil, which then you go through Transport New South Wales. They will look at it, comes back. Our experience has been for the packages that are approved, it's more like 23. That sets your upper limit. What that means to council, that doesn't mean to say 23 million is what we get and what we then pay out. That's the upper limit. We then do our work on that, and that's the upper limit. But generally, our experience is that we don't actually get to that upper limit. That's been experienced in the past. That's certainly been the information that the Director of Infrastructure has been able to advise to me as well and help me understand. So that's that bit. I'll just leave the rest. We've talked about the business continuity plan. We're in that process. We've had a workshop where now we've allocated funding to it, and we are going through that process of getting a business continuity plan. Again, it was something that was noted by the auditors, but more importantly, I think we need it ourselves. So in case something happens, it's just something we need. Yep. So I'll be able to continue to report on that one. All right. So there's a commentary on some on wages, and I know that had been something that had been raised by councillors previously. I have gone into significant detail into the QBRS, and I just leave that for you to read, and certainly happy if you want to come back with questions at any time, and we can then update you accordingly. Infrastructure I've touched on already, so I won't do any more. Corragwell, environmental services, we had the temporary closures of the Corragwell Bondi tips, which we know about. We've internally allocated 100,000 to domestic waste management. We anticipate, and we'll be covering this into the June council meeting, but actually, so the formal setup of fund number 3, which is the waste management, that will all be recommended and for the 2025 year, so we'll have the general sewer and waste management, and then we will actually vote on having an annual allocation across into that as we build it, because it needs to be there. It's not there, but it is a restorative cost. Is definitely something that we need to have funded for and provisioned for. So that will come in the June meeting.
Waste management fees will go into that, and running costs will come out.
That's the plan, yes, because we've got it in we've got it in the 2025 one now. Yes, it's a separate fund, so there is actually the curb side of the waste management is now in a separate bucket, and they will be contained in there for that reason. Yep, that's the plan.
Have you done any questions, councillors? Councillor Pipros?
No, I just wanted to compliment and thank the director. He's put his heart and soul into this, trying to sort it out. Done a great job.
Councillor Cook?
Just a couple of questions. Page 83, it has a note that council is provided with the QBRS, which may also include updates and amendments prior to the council meeting. I suppose you've discussed about Luca Group probably preparing this, and maybe that's the difference in timing. That I sort of thought once the business papers were printed, that would be the final version, rather than having updates moving forward.
Councillor Cook,
Page 83.
Reading that from?
Page 83, the
Yes.
the second top line,
Page 83 of
the business
The
papers.
newspaper,
not the actual
council provided PDS which may also include updates and amendments prior to the
Yeah.
council meeting.
So just, is there a time?
There are none, so my comment was that will be available to you next week.
Okay.
That's all, and I can provide that, but just don't have anything today at this point in time.
No, that's fine. That's good because we
That
don't
answers
have
the question.
Yep. The second one is, you talked about improving this, which is excellent, and also about the natural disasters. Well, I think what you said is we had 32 million. It's more likely to be 23 million, but again, our paperwork says 29 million. So is that something that's going to be updated in these amendments?
If you're referring to the capital works program,
The natural disasters.
natural disaster, the very last one in the capital works program.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 32 that's gone to 23.
Yeah.
But we're actually, the graphs are saying 29.
So.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I can answer that one. As the Director of Corporate's already stated, we've had 2 packages with the upper limit approved. So on paper at the moment, we know what actuals are for 2 of the packages, and the other ones are still in the system. That's why it totals up to 29. But at the rate that we're going with transport, we're expecting and predicting and modelling it to be 23.
Thank you, General
So-
Manager.
Could we let Councillor Cook finish your questions before we go through? So we'd like you to go through all your questions, Councillor Cook. You'll have the remainder of your 5 minutes, and then they'll be answered rather than going backwards and forwards.
Okay, so that's my
Thank you.
first question, is page 91, the graph says 29. Page 91 as well, halfway down, Director, infrastructure, and it says part of, and I think it's the same, Transport for New South Wales funding, and it says of the revenue, noting that about 1.2 million will have been spent this financial year. Is that 1.2 of the 32, or is that a different figure that's coming into there? Because 1.2 seems a long way from 32.
It's
So I'm
inclusive.
thinking,
Sorry.
Director, have you, Councillor Cook, go
second
through and
one-
finish your questions. Could you go through and finish your questions?
Yeah, sorry.
Is it? No, you're right.
that's right.
Have you finished everything?
The director's happy to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Through there. It's all part of the same thing, right? So the 32 was the start point that we had, and then as Noreen has said, we expect based on so it comes down to 29 because no 2 have been actually locked in as an upper limit. The other ones will come down, we expect, in the same ratio, and that lands us at 23 million. That's where we expect it will be, but we can't change the table. We only just based on the information that we know at the time, and we can't just we substantiate it to the best we possibly can, and that just make the point that will continually change.
Yep.
And then as it gets updated, that's the best time to then inform you, but that's the best we've got at the moment, and that's how we report it. So, but definitely the 1.2 that was spent relates to some of those packages within the 6 packages that were approved. So we had the approved ones early, so they're the ones we've worked on, done the work, and now we're up to the claiming process and recovery of grant funds. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay.
Any other councillors? Questions? Councillor Best?
Not a question, just Councillor Diffraz's comments. It's terrific work, and it's a great format too. I think it's really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Like, it's really understandable, and the commentary is really helpful.
Yeah. Appreciate that, because thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, I'll put that to the meeting. All those in favour of the recommendation, accept business statement for Q3.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, John. Very good.
Okay.
Item 11.2, statement of bank balances. We have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Frame, Councillor Dipraz, thank you. John, would you like to speak to that?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So yes, very quickly on this one. This is really just for noting, as we do every month. We have the cash position is 8.5 million, of which we've got short-term term deposits of 8 million, and then obviously the operating account of 500,000. We then have the second page of that is simply broken up. So you've got transparency around how that 8 million is made up. We have moved 2 of the 18 to an on-call account. That said, the rate is still pretty good, but that just means that we can break it as we need, if we need, but we don't intend to. But as at March, I mean, I know, you know, that's the position as at March, but obviously cash comes and goes since then. So that's all. Thank you.
Any questions,
Me.
councillors? No, Councillor McKellar?
Great format again, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, all those in favour of the recommendation, councillors? Carried, thank you. We've got item 11.3, rates and charges collection. We'll move into seconder. With Councillor McKellar, seconded Councillor Best. You want to speak to that one, John?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Okay, so this is for council to note the rates and charges collection for April 2024, and I'm not going to go through too much apart from the table, which is in there and for you to review, and I'll take it as read unless there are any other questions.
Questions?
Not a question, just a comment, just for the community. Just realise that the council is an open door. If you're having issues with paying your rates, come and see us. Well, come and talk to us. They've got a good policy in place to deal with that sort of stuff. Don't be afraid to come forward and actually, you know, and speak to staff. That's all.
Well said.
We know there's pressures on this, so.
Well said. All right, I'll put that to the meeting. All those in favour?
No.
Carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 11.4, draft sale of disposal of council assets policy. We're going to move in the seconder. Move Councillor Frame, seconded Councillor McKellar. You want to speak on that one, John?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So my recommendation is that that the council submit this as in a draft form for public exhibition for the 28-day period, and then secondly, subject to any changes if they're minor and insignificant, then again request the General Manager provide a further report with the submissions received at the conclusion of the public exhibition period for council's further consideration. So that would be in the June, we would expect that would be in the June period. However, that'll be obviously the function of the 28 days and when it actually gets uploaded to the public. So very quickly, so that was basically this is an evolution from 2 policies. We previously had the procurement policy only. We've now split that in because we think it's important to have this one separately. So we've got a draft sale and disposal of assets policy in here. And, you know, it is a relevant policy and we think it's an important policy to have it as a standalone. That's pretty well all I'll say on that one. And it was also an action that was identified in the self-improvement plan, management plan as well to do this. So I think we probably already had this discussion previously before my time.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
Very good.
And then the other policy, then so that's it. Yeah, back to you.
Right, thanks, John. Councillor Rose.
I'm happy to speak in favour of it. I think it was really important that the policy does state that any real estate has to come to council before it's sold. So that's important.
Right, put that to the meeting. All those in favour of the recommendation? It's carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 11.5, the draft procurement policy. Move in a seconder. Move Councillor Howell, second Councillor Best. Thank you. The recommendation there. John, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, the draft policy be placed on public exhibition for a period of 28 days. So inviting submissions, and that could be internally or externally, either way. And then the second item there, the General Manager present a further report to Council with all the submissions received at the conclusion for further consideration and adoption of the policy. And in the event there's no submissions or received, then basically Council can formally adopt the policy without any changes made. Again, timing may be, if it's all going, if it lines up well, it will be for the June meeting, which we hope, but otherwise it'll be the following, the next one, as soon as we can after the 28 days period. And I'm not going to go into the details. I think it's there, but again, we've got 28-day period for any comments as well as, you know, tonight. So,
Questions?
back to you. Yeah.
Councillor Cook?
We did discuss this in the pre-briefing meeting, but I'd just like to put it on the record, I suppose, that I did ask to defer these policies on the grounds that we haven't got track changes, and I understand that they have been separated, but what the written business papers say is that we didn't have a previous policy to compare to, and we do definitely have a procurement policy and definitely got different amounts that needed to be looked at and different procedures that happen with the different amounts that are being procured. And I do know, thank you to the director, that we did have that conversation. I know that, well, in this business papers there is 7 new policies presented to council. We get our business papers on a Friday. We come to a meeting. It's now Thursday. We're trying to do 7 new policies. I just think it's possibly better to workshop any new policies when there's 7 of them in a business paper, to workshop with the council and the councillors in a setting before we get to a live meeting, because me having to go back and write 7 public submissions to answer any of these questions, I think it would be a much better use of councillors' time and to collaborate on things that we're all asking than having to go through and, as the General Manager said in earlier motions, to overburden staff and waste staff time by having to write written reports when it could have been talked about. And I just think we need to allow time for councillors to discuss policies before they're changed or before they're put up, just to be put out to public exhibition. When things like this, like as I was saying before, $660,000 to me is a big amount of money. I would have liked to have discussed it. I understand I was voted down, but I still feel that that's my due diligence to ask those sort of questions, and that's what this policy is about.
So would you like to make an amendment to item 3 there, that we defer this to a later date?
Well, no one will support me, so no. So no use actually bringing things like that to council, but I'm just making it a statement that it was asked to defer it before the meeting, so that we could actually chat about what are the limits, what is in the procurement policy, and what, when we need 1 quote, 2 quotes. And I think the example I gave was anything under $3,000 is now just a verbal quote. We have no evidence of verbal quotes, and that for me, coming from an accounting background, source documents are very important.
Councillor McKellar?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's incorrect. The table in terms of the delegations under $3,000 still says the 1 written quote and verbal quote. So we actually have to document that information down through a purchase order. And I just wanted to make this statement. Yes, I totally take on board that there are 7 policies attached to this business paper, but I'm also mindful that the flip side is that when we have actions that are on a self-initiated improvement management plan that we need to meet within a certain time frame, and then councillors turn around and say, you haven't tabled a policy because we have to keep delaying and deferring things, it's just not good enough for the business, because the staff are crying out for more process, more procedures, and we've got a really good procedure that supports this policy. So I would probably reiterate that this really, really needs to be done. We've got 2 new directors in at the moment who are continually asking questions and asking for assistance. And I think this is a good news story. We get flack all the time around needing to forensically audit things in council, and having a procurement policy that provides further provisions is a good news story.
Thank you, General Manager. And don't forget, we've also got 28 days to review the policy and get back to council with our own submissions. And if you want to talk to other councils, I guess everybody's available. Some of us just haven't got time to have special workshops to come in and discuss these things. So if I wanted to talk to Phil about it, I'll give him a call on the phone and discuss the procurement policy if I needed to. Just suggesting that. Councillor McKellar, you had your hand up.
Yes, it's just in relation to Councillor Cook. It just sounded like grandstanding to me.
I think we probably could do without that language, Councillor McKellar. Just at this stage, thank you.
And I just want to pick up a comment from the General Manager. I don't think there's a single council in this room that's talking at all about forensic audits. So,
Could I make,
Mr Mayor, could I just
Yeah,
make
sure.
quick comment as well? Look, we have to balance what we can do in a workshop, what we can workshop through, versus, and we've got a pretty full schedule in terms of workshopping, and I understand, and it's not taking away that point, because I think it's a good point. But we have to balance that with then the time spent going through the policy, 28 days, to then come back with any adjustments. And that's just a balancing act, and I fully appreciate it, but I just wanted to put it out there to say that that's there's a tension in there in terms of continually, workshopping everything to that degree. And that's all. That's just the comment I wanted to make about it. Totally respect what you're saying. Yeah.
Thank you,
And sorry, Mr Mayor, if I could just make one comment around the business paper. So our code of meeting practice is 1 week before the council meeting. Most councils, I would say 95% of councils actually stick to what the code of meeting practice states, which is 3 days. And I do understand that the Minister is planning to change the code of meeting practice to actually standardise those kind of rules. So coming into the next council cycle, you might only have 3 days to actually review a business paper, just like every other council across the state.
Thank you, Jan. All right, we'll put that to the... Sorry, Councillor Best. One. Oh, you voted to put it to vote? Okay. All right, put that to the vote. Those in favour of the recommendation?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, councillors. 11.6, draft contract management policy. We're moving to seconder. Move Councillor Dipro, second to Councillor Frame. The recommendation there. Would you like to speak to that, John?
Thanks. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, similar to the last one, the recommendation is that we put forward for council a draft contract management policy, and if accepted tonight, then goes out for a period of 28 days for any submissions in the public exhibition period. And secondly, then we would come back and report if there's anything in the absence of that, but then it's adopted. And again, the timing around that will be a function of when it gets uploaded and our next council meeting if necessary. I won't go into the detail of the policy. I'll take it as read. And back to you, Mr Mayor.
I'll put that to the meeting. All those in favour of the recommendation? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 11, infrastructure and services report. Infrastructure works report. Sorry, we've got a typo there. It's 12.1. Sorry. Moving to seconder. It's Councillor Parlett, second to Councillor McKellar. Our acting director, would you like to speak on that?
Mr Mayor, over the last 3 weeks I've met a great bunch of people in the workforce and in management here in the chambers. I've slowly coming to grips with the scale and scope of what Weddin Council has to do in the infrastructure sector, which is a lot. I'm working closely with our GM and John and others in the team to integrate what we have to do in the infrastructure section with their finances and whatnot. In the short term, I'm trying to, with our teams out in the field, finish all the work to the end of this financial year so that we can claim back any monies due from transport and other grants applicable. And in the longer term, work with, again, the GM and all our directors and staff here to set up procedures that will assist council infrastructure to work more efficiently and effectively and build a culture where people can be proud of what they do. So that's about it really. At the moment, we are doing some of the things that the ratepayers have asked for where we can in the short term. and we have a priority to fix the roads that are in the worst shape first with the remaining monies we have. We're slowly setting things up for the upcoming Henry Lawson Festival by, as you'll notice, putting up those disability signs along Main Street, which will continue and assist for that upcoming parade. I suppose that's about it, really.
I'd like to thank the Director. I'd just like to remind everybody out there that our staff are working as hard as they possibly can to get the roads back into the state they should be. I'd just like to remind everybody that we're going as hard and as fast as we can, and just to be careful on the roads and obey the road signs. So, any questions on that report, councillors?
Yeah, just one of my favourite things. The toilet at the cemetery. Sorry. Telling me, go away. I gather that the DA is now complete and we're now looking at it. So that's the next.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the modification's been lodged with council. It's currently on public exhibition. So in accordance with council's council-related development application policy that we had to introduce, we have to send that out to public exhibition. So that then has to be reported back to council. So it's just another timing thing. It will be very close. Hopefully we'll be aiming to try and get it to the June meeting so that if that gets approved, that the work can commence. But it will be a tight time frame, and it might even have to be a late report if need be.
Very good. Any other questions or comments, councillors? Nothing? All right, well, recommendation there, councillors. All those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried, thank you. Oh, yeah, page 57. So item 12, environmental services report. Sorry, that must be item, it's just a typo, is it? 13.1, sorry.
13.1.
Yeah, good. We're to move in a second. Hang on, this is just for information,
just
is
for
it?
information.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
Mr. Mayor. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. So item 13.1 just provides a list of all the development locations, the CDC and the construction certificates which were issued during the month of April. Just for noting, or for information, sorry.
Any questions, councillors? All good? Item 15.1, minutes of the committee meetings. Sorry, I missed one. Item 13, progress report. That is a nil. Item 15, council minutes of committee meetings. We've got 15.1, council committee requiring action, the heritage committee meeting. The recommendation is, except where otherwise dealt with, the minutes of the heritage committee held on the 10th of April 2024 will be noted and adopted as presented. We'll move in a seconder for that. Move Councillor Diprose. Seconded Councillor Howell. All those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 15.2, council committee report. The minutes of the Henry Lawson Festival of the Arts Committee held on the 20th of April. Recommendation there is, except where otherwise dealt with, the minutes of the Henry Lawson Festival of the Arts Committee held on the 20th of April 2024 be noted and adopted. We're going to move in a seconder. Move to Councillor McKellar, second to Councillor Howell. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 16, we want to move into closed council. So if we have someone move, we go Councillor Diprose and Councillor Paulette. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, welcome back everybody. The meeting was closed to the public under section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993 to consider the items following because of their confidential nature. Item 16.1, rental accommodation at 3 Weddin Street, Grenfell. The matter is considered to be confidential, I've just stated that. So it was moved Councillor Parlett, seconded Councillor Frame, that Council approve the request for the Grenfell Medical Practice to allow for 3 Weddin Street to be set up for temporary accommodation for locum doctors, allied health professionals and medical relief staff. 2, delegate the General Manager to report on any major capital upgrade or renovation costs for prior approval that may be required before proceeding with any major maintenance work. 3, Council to undertake a walkthrough of the property. And it was carried. Against was Councillor Cook. 16.2, supply and delivery of DGB 20 and DGB S40 pavement materials to the Greenthorpe Coorwatha Road project. It was moved Councillor Bitrose, second to Councillor Frame, that Council 1 delegate the General Manager to accept the tender submitted by Glenella Quarry Pty Ltd. 2, delegate the General Manager to enter into a contract to purchase 6,000 tonne DGB 20 at a cost of 250,800 GST inclusive. 3, delegate the General Manager to enter into a contract to purchase 14,000 tonnes of DGS 40 at a cost of 523,600 GST inclusive. Carried. Councillor Cook was against that as well. 16.3, entering into contract for bridge capacity assessments. A resolution moved Councillor Frame, seconded Councillor McKellar, that 1, Council accept and sign a contract with Integrity Testing for bridge capacity assessments, and 2, Council advise Central New South Wales joint organisation of its decision. That was carried unanimously. Item 16.4, Council Committee Report requiring action, minutes of the Henry Lawson Festival of the Arts Committee meeting held on the 10th of April 2024. Resolution moved Councillor Frame, seconded Councillor Best, that Council endorse the minutes of the Henry Lawson Festival of the Arts Committee meeting held on the 10th of April 2024, excluding the President's Report, item 10. The division was required. 4 was Councillor Benbrick, Councillor Best, Councillor Howell, Councillor McKellar and Councillor Frame, and against was Councillor Cook, Councillor Diprose and Councillor Parlett. And item 19, that's closing of the meeting. Would someone like to move and second that we close the meeting? Moved Councillor Diprose, seconded Councillor Howell. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you, councillors. Thank you for the meeting tonight. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.